Joining Lisa for our next discussion on how to enable cloud technologies everywhere will be Juan Nunez, Data and Analytics Practice Leader, Adam Storch, Vice President and Business Process and Content Services Practice Leader, and Bob Clebra, our Practice Leader for Hybrid IT.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Appreciate it. Bob and Juan and Adam, I'm really excited about our conversation today because, as Sean noted, these topics of how to really leverage the cloud technologies are really a challenge for organizations. And as he highlighted, it's not just one thing. It's not something that technology alone can solve for. As he highlighted, there's the skills and culture aspects of it. There's the overall enterprise process that's being impacted. And then really the question is the enterprise readiness. Where is that organization with respect to the ability to adopt it? So my question out to you guys to kick off is really, where do you think the number one focus area that you're experiencing when working with organizations should be based upon where you're seeing they are in their cloud journey? And I'll start with Adam.
Oh, nice. I get the first question. All right. I feel honored.
Absolutely.
I feel honored. Thanks, Lisa. No, I think, as introduced, I'm in charge of the business process and content services practice. So we're doing a lot of process related work. And I think the biggest focus is getting people to be comfortable that change is happening a lot quicker now. Change needs to happen a lot quicker, and they need to be comfortable with being that nimble. We work with a lot of different companies, and some of them aren't used to quick change, and their idea of quick is a year. So I think it's getting companies comfortable with being able to be nimble, knowing it's okay to be nimble, all right, and embrace a little bit more the changes that are going to happen. I mean, and I know it sounds like whatever, but it's a big deal. I mean, and then when we do our workshops and all that other stuff with clients, that's usually a lot of the opening lines. Things are going to change. I promise you're going to live. Okay, but be comfortable with that change and be comfortable that things are going to evolve. Okay, and don't wait. That's the thing. So that's really from what I'm seeing on my side. Juan, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, so Adam, in this year especially has marked a huge pressure on the transformation and the ability to react to new data that we didn't actually pay attention to before, or we didn't know we needed to pay attention to. It just became relevant. And the ability to actually reach out and be able to touch on those new data elements, like, for example, what is my county situation, what's going on in my areas, or in the areas where I have physical locations. How are my customers changing the way that they interact with us? These are dramatic impacts. These have been dramatic impacts to companies' operations. So being able to be flexible and nimble to go get new sources of data and interact and analyze new sources of data that were generated by these new situations that you talk about has been accelerated and exacerbated throughout this year.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts? You're on mute, Bob.
There we go. Technology works. So no, I think from my standpoint and supporting the practices, with analytics and BPCS as well, just as we work together, really meeting folks where they are, and really, sharing the fact that the technology is there. Technology is no longer a limitation, the flexibility of it, and how do you bring it into the organization? So, I mean, everyone's at several different states. I think that, on the migration, depending on the legacy of the company, not the technology legacy, but the legacy of the company where they begin. So I think it's just a question of meeting them where they are, moving them forward and reassuring them and explaining them from a strategic standpoint how they can move forward. So, and how best to move forward from that point. And, even born on cloud, as those companies grow and you look at the organizational impacts, I think that to me, that's the biggest thing. The technology is there. It's the organizational changes that really come into play. And I think Sean mentioned it, Lisa, you mentioned it earlier, is the organization ready to really take advantage of the technology and be competitive in the markets? And to be quite honest, some market spaces, you don't have to worry about it, right? They may not be as evolved, or it hasn't hit, but it's going to, because the technology is available now. And you have to come in where you are and move forward in advance.
So great point. To that question, if nimbleness is so critical, and if business readiness is going to be different from organization to organization, how critical is it for that organization to really take a step back and define what their strategy needs to be with respect to what cloud means for them?
I mean, I think from a competitive perspective, and again, it depends on industry, if you're not stepping back and looking at it, you're just getting further and further behind, right? Because like I said earlier, the technology is there. So it's a question of how you're going to move forward organizationally and really, breaking yourself down, breaking down the walls and such. I think of it as, boundless frameworks, and how we've talked about cloud for a long time, but what does that even mean, right? If I have systems that have been around for some time, how can I tap those to take that business value and drive it forward and then exploit it, as we do internally, really, generating the data from those systems, bringing that back around and injecting it into the business process to further iterate and move forward. So to me, that's where I think it is.
Yeah, when you talk about being able to meet the pace of the demands, I think one of the important things when you think about design is that the application world, when you think about data and analytics and data generated from applications, initially there was a move to look to separate cloud compute and cloud operations from the applications themselves. Just basically say, application folks, you don't worry about where it runs, it doesn't matter. And yeah, I mean, that's a great way to think about it. But the reality is, we do care, and we care because when you think about capabilities, cost, and experience for the users of those applications, it is critical that we understand in these boundless frameworks that Bob was talking about, how are our applications going to support the business value? How are we going to be able to stitch together and really orchestrate the way that our teams are going to be working? Because the separation without orchestration really brings a whole slew of new problems of disconnected capabilities. So I think that design is critical, even though technically separation is good. The orchestration pieces are very important.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, Bob hit on the head on the step back to be nimble, because a lot of times people just try to dive forward without stepping back at what's going on, and that's not marketing work. That's reality. Everybody's like, this is where I want to be. Okay, step back, look at where you are right now. Okay, and even understanding how you got to where you are can help you break that down. I mean, with the new cloud piece, I remember like Juan said, on the integration side, we used to, stitch things, together, and it was almost an afterthought, right? Because they're like, okay, do my thing, then do my thing. You can't do that now. There's not enough time, if you will, to meet the customer demands, to meet the changes, to do that, as an, oh, by the way, and you walk into these things, you've got to look at the different pieces, all right, and make that part of your solution architecture. Not even just your technical architecture, your solution architecture. And that's bringing the business, it's bringing the infrastructure, it's bringing the analytics. You got to get everybody together. And as we all know from these 12 million Zoom meetings we've all been on, that really is possible, guys. We can all get together, okay? And I think that's something we really need to, we really not need to be afraid of that stuff. I got to tell you, I argue that, Jason, you'll hear about later, he runs application development here at MicroStrategies. We've gotten together almost more now than before. You know what I'm saying? Because of the Zoom stuff. So take advantage of that, guys. Think new. Think new is everybody to get together, all the pieces. All right. And that's a big deal. And that'll get you there quicker. I know it sounds weird. More people involved quicker. Yeah. More people involved early will get you to the end game quicker.
So that kind of leads to the organizational readiness and openness. How ready are you to embrace those technologies to change the way that you work? And if you are, then you can definitely experience that boundless nature of things, as you talked about, Bob. So I'm going to ask a little bit of a loaded question. So we talked about strategy. Is strategy alone enough? Is there more to it than just the strategy?
I think as we just commented, or you just commented, without the organizational change, putting forth the technology, it's not pointless. I mean, you'll still optimize and save time, and your connectivity to third parties and your partners will dramatically increase. your SaaS capabilities, to utilize SaaS capabilities and further integrate, with what we're calling today and have been for the past couple years, microservices and containers, right, or Kubernetes, whatever you want to refer to it as. So I think there's definitely benefits to bringing those forth, but without the innate business change or business operating model changes and really bringing the technology forth within the operating model. And then I think taking the data components that are spun off of that new business operation as you digitize and you bring the technology closer to business operations, you're missing the boat. And because that's what your competitors are doing. The term years ago was born on cloud, right? And that's they didn't build that legacy in their organizations. Now it's interesting to see where folks are today. Again, it is by market and by industry, but it is if you're not going to embrace organizational change, you're not going to get the full benefit at the end of the day. That's my opinion. So
yeah, and I think you need to make that word strategy a lot bigger than people used to use it. Okay, strategies is a word, we use that word, but the problem is you also got to make sure we're all on the same page with the definition of strategy. Okay, the strategy needs to encompass the end game, which is how do I get my business where it needs to be. That's the strategy you need to do. And the components of that strategy is everything from the infrastructure, the analytics, the applications, and the business. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the big things from our perspective. I think all of us on the Zoom right now, because we all live it every day. It's that word strategy really needs to encompass what the heck do we need to do at the end of the day to ensure business is growing and thriving. And that's the thing. What's that, strategy? What does that mean? And make sure you're on the same page with what the definition of strategy is. So,
And,
I know where you're going. Go ahead.
So I'm listening to the two of you guys, and these born on cloud companies, right? The reason why they are disruptors in their industries is because they think about strategy the way you're talking about, Adam, where it's not like, what is our cloud strategy? It's not about cloud strategy. It is about the alignment of their business model and their operating model, and what are the ways in which they're going to leverage their people, technology, also they have processes that they put into place to be nimble and flexible and compete with the companies that have owned those spaces, those industries.
Yeah.
And because they think about that strategy differently and more comprehensively, it is that they're disruptors in their industries.
That's not, I think the born on cloud piece is, we think it's public cloud. It's really the cloud technologies. Just want to make sure we're clear that cloud technologies can operate anywhere, private cloud, on-prem, it doesn't matter. And the fact that, most folks are using multiple clouds, multiple public clouds, as well as on-prem technology. So it is, when we say born on cloud, for me, it's more born on cloud technologies, but it just so happens that most of those companies that started up, they didn't have a significant investment so they could start out on the cloud and ease into it. But today, those technologies exist in every facet of technology infrastructure.
So you guys are talking a lot about, ensuring an organization is going to grow and thrive, and that I think Adam used the word, think about where they need to be. So can organizations compete if they don't embrace these cloud technologies and embrace that as part of their strategies?
All I can say is, I'm like, yeah, no, they need to figure that stuff out. And I think they've got to be comfortable to know they don't know and to seek help. You know what I'm saying? And that help can be community-wise. That could be a MicroStrategies. Yes, we would love you to call MicroStrategies, but you need to go out there though and seek help. Don't be alone. I don't mean to say it that way, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? In today's world, without a cloud strategy, I have no idea, unless it's the hot dog stand in the corner, which is probably going to be closed down from what I understand with the new COVID restrictions. I mean, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to need that cloud piece, and don't be afraid to reach out for, other help, because everybody is in some form of cloud strategy. Some of them don't even realize it, but they're all in some form of cloud strategy, and understanding that and embracing that and then figuring out where you need to be is what it's all about. But you got to have some form of strategy.
I take it one step further. Based on the market you're in, I think cloud technology is given, right? It's there and it works basically. I think changing the operating model to iterate with the data that's being generated as you digitize is the key now, right? So as we sit here, and we talk about cloud technologies, yes, it's there. It's easy to enable. We're flexible. We have all these dynamic sandboxes that teams work within. We have all our SaaS solutions connected together. That's great. Okay, what's happening when we have all these new solutions? There's data being generated. How are you capturing that and bringing it back in? Because the next wave that's going to hit is IoT, right? And it already has hit many industries, but it's going to start to come over us all and generate even more data, right? So if you're not managing your digital operations, and I'm talking about core business, and then not dealing with the data that you have today, when the IoT wave hits you in devices, whether it's cars in your industry or whatever the case may be, you think about all the data that's out there. As we start to collect that, what are you going to do with that? So it's that iterative cycle. It's commonly referred to as agile, right? Stand-ups and all those fun things, but it's just the common word, just iterate and then continuously improve, get that continuous cycle going. So no, I think they'll survive for a while, to answer your question, but no, I don't think they will compete long. They won't compete. They'll survive and ultimately die just based on their size. So
yeah, you know, to me, it's what is the customer doing, and what are the customer expectations? When you think about the customers in those different industries and what their expectations are and what they're used to doing, and how their behaviors are evolving. We are used to pushing the envelope with technology naturally. We just accept and leverage new technologies. And when the companies that we're doing business with do not meet us where we are, then they're lagging behind, and they will continue to lag behind. The expectation of the customer really governs the need for a company to meet them, and the ability to be nimble and iterate and improve on their processes. The disruptors are external. They're not just within the industry. They're not just your competition, and they're driven by customer behavior. And this year especially is going to mark and has marked a new beginning in customer expectations. So if you're a retailer, curbside pickup is not going to be enough as you look at the expectation of customers as we move forward into what's going to be the way that we live in the future. And I'm not going to use one of those normal words.
Yeah, no, and I think want to jump on something that, you know, Bob and Juan said, and why Juan exists in our company, thank God, in his group, is the looking and reviewing at that information. There used to be only certain industries that cared about the analytics of a process. You know what I'm saying? There were certain. Now everybody needs to look at the analytics of the process. I don't care what industry you're in, and I think that's some of the things that we've seen in the BPCS group. Right, we build our process workflow systems, and there were certain areas that said, hey, Adam, I want to see a dashboard of this or track what's going on and like that. Nowadays, because you need to be more nimble, everybody needs to be able to look at their process, understand what's going on, the cause and effect, and all the other stuff. So I think that's something that needs to be also mentioned. I've seen an uptick of, you know, there were certain industries that cared about that kind of information, that kind of analytics. Now it seems everybody is and should. You know what I'm saying? To be that nimble, you need to know what the heck's going on. All right. And you need to know what it takes to have that go on. You know, what are the factors that are driving that? And I think analytics is playing a much bigger role in a lot of the projects we're doing these days, because people realize that. You need to be able to make decisions. To make decisions, you need the data. To do the data, you have to have the analytics. Hello. So, you know, that's a big deal.
It's time to go beyond the data lake. Let's just not put everything out there and not know what to do with it, you know, as we used to do. Now it's time to take action and iterate back into the business.
And that goes back to what you were talking about, Bob, on the boundless frameworks, right? So as we think about all of these interaction points, regardless of whether they're customer facing or internally facing, there are many interaction points. Historically, we have always looked to let's bring things into a data warehouse and make it all nice and neat, and invested a lot of dollars and a lot of time and a lot of effort into doing that. That was not wasted effort. It was the solution for the times. But now we need to also challenge ourselves to think differently. How do we push those analytical processes to the interaction points? Again, whether it's interaction with customers or internal operations, how do we leverage the data that is generated by those processes, where it is sourced, and at the time that is most useful. So not waiting until it is integrated into some data lake, data ocean, data something. I'm not criticizing these things. I'm just simply saying that there is a time consideration in an application for different analytical approaches that is very critical, and it brings together what you were talking about, Bob, how technologies can really be deployed in a more flexible way. So the applications, again, going back to the design components, the applications need to accompany that and be able to be deployed in the same way.
So, question for you guys. We talk a lot about the nimbleness and the need for that. And many born on cloud organizations obviously just have that ingrained into their DNA. You know, I think with Facebook, they say fail fast and break things. So, you know, that concerns some organizations that have a business to run and they don't have an opportunity per se, or they're very afraid to just break a lot of things. So does nimble and iterative need to be sloppy and disjointed, or are there ways to approach it where obviously, you know, people have done that? Or how do organizations that are challenged with that cultural side embrace that so they don't feel like they're losing, you know, that sense of control and feeling like things are sloppy and disjointed?
I think that, you know, iteration, you know, you have to. Are we getting feedback? Yeah, I think we are. All right, I'm gonna continue. Hopefully it stops. I think we're good. Anyway, so yes, I think that, you know, iterating, you know, failing fast, as you Facebook reference. I'm sorry, the feedback is becoming a challenge. Anyway, so you can't be reckless or sloppy, as you're saying. You have to be focused and keep it contained, right? There has to be boundaries around it, but you want to set soft boundaries, like we just talked about being boundless, right? So I don't have to do a pilot. I don't have to go do 10%. Maybe I do 1 or 10 or something to that effect, to whatever scale that is, whatever the metric is that you're utilizing, whether that's in retail, at stores, or, you know, with customers, direct customers or PC. You do smaller iterations of it, but again, you have to put yourself out there and expose it, and you want to set metrics and you want to measure it and get in and get out quickly. You don't want to set a, you know, we use the word strategy, which is a stodgy way of saying I'm going to do something for a very, very long time, right? But you've got to iterate and be quick about it, right? Measure it, figure out what you can learn, and come up with the next best version to get moving again, right? And don't be afraid to have complete failures at the end of the day. But no, you don't want to expose your entire business to it. I mean, it's not sloppy. I would say that the iteration is actually much more controlled than in the way many businesses are run today, to be quite honest with you, from a metrics perspective, because you set those benchmarks, you hit them, or you don't hit them, and you get out, right? So that's my perspective.
Yeah, and I think sloppiness, you know, has happened in the past because they do too much without analyzing or figuring out what they've done. You know what I'm saying? If I look at projects, you know, and stuff we've done, and we've had this in our previous webinars, the topic is, you know, what has changed in projects in general? Well, they've gotten smaller or chunked up more. You know what I'm saying? And by making them smaller, then being able to track that, you could be quick, see what's going on, and not be sloppy. So accelerating doesn't have to mean sloppy. You know, what sloppy is, no controls. Okay, you could still move fast with controls and not be sloppy. You know, the key is the controls and how much you do. You know what I'm saying? Do it bigger is not always better. Couple of small pieces with the controls, you'll get there. And we've seen that over the last 6 months. You know, we've kind of, you know, some of the things we've learned, you know, and I've been doing this for a few years now. A couple of things we've learned is that, you know, if we break things up and convince the client it's okay to break things up and not to have more of a big bang piece, you actually are faster, because your testing cycle, your validation cycle, you're making sure you're on the right track. It's very tough to go far afield. You know what I'm saying? When you've got the smaller pieces. And that's what can help you, if you will, avoiding the sloppiness by accelerating. You know, it's, you know, telling the organizations, accept smaller pieces and pull them together. Okay. Understand where you're going. And that, again, the smaller pieces allow you to keep the bounds a little better. Okay. Allow you to keep the guardrails up and get there quicker. You know, because I tell you, if I look at projects from many years ago, big, they want to do big projects. Clients want the big bang, you know, the world's going to be great. No, smaller pieces actually make it faster and cleaner at the end. They actually do that. So, you know, that's some of the things we got to teach some of the clients to know that that's okay, you know.
I actually love the word sloppy because it actually describes how certain things come to happen and have come to happen in the past when you need speed. There's a business demand, you need to have an answer very quickly, and you do it the best you can as fast as you can. And if you don't have a proper framework around you that actually has been created with an understanding of the difference between stable events within an organization and more dynamic things that will happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the data track. That was an ad for the data track. Find the link on the side. Really having that framework that allows us to move quickly and iterate. Data people are experimentation people. So iteration should be empowered and should be encouraged and supported by the framework that we put into place. So when you combine experimentation with a rigid framework, you get sloppy. Oh, we can't hear you, Lisa.
The MicroStrategies, we are a technology solution provider, but as we've said, a lot of the stuff you guys are challenged with when we're working with customers is really not around the technology alone. So how do you approach when you're working with customers and you recognize right away that there's a cultural challenge or there's something that's going to prevent the adoption of the achievement, I should say, of the business outcomes that the organization is trying to achieve because of some of those cultural pieces? How do you work with them to overcome that?
So on our side, quite frankly, we end up talking them through it. I mean, I know it sounds simple because it's not, okay? And I've made this joke in previous webinars. Sometimes we are the Dr. Fraser Crane of solutions. You know, I'm listening, but it's really talking them through it because either they have these issues because of scars, right? So they moved too quick in the past, or they've done this in the past, and you know, forgive me, the human feces hit the rotating oscillator. Okay, and so it's understanding sometimes the scars. All right, we've had those conversations. We've been in workshops whiteboarding, you know, last few months where I'm like, where are you going? And then you dig a little deeper and you find out they did this another way and it failed miserably. I'm like, okay, guys, so let's talk through that. Why did that fail? What did you miss? You know what I'm saying? What didn't you do? What didn't you analyze? I guess that's a data analytics track plug, just, you know. But nonetheless, I think it's talking them through it, all right? Because most times when people don't want to do this or the organization isn't ready, there's a reason. Either they're afraid to make decisions because of failure, there was a failure and they don't know why, okay? Or they think they've got plenty of time to make that decision, hence, you know, needing to be nimble. So, you know, with my side, it's more along the lines of talking them through it and then understanding the why. The big question I always ask is why. Sometimes I drive them crazy with clients, you know, but why? There's a reason somebody says can't do it. There's a reason somebody says nothing, you know, a reason somebody, you know, is dead silent. The why is the big thing, and talking them through it. And I got to tell you, it works really 100% of the time when you let the client talk about it. And our objective is to lead them there, not to tell them stuff, but to lead them there by virtue of the data they provide.
I think what Adam's saying is we ask questions, right? Keep it in mind the business value that was originally derived and get others involved, right? So there's some value that should be driven by whatever we're doing. And then when you're not comfortable, we're going down the right path, or we aren't, we ask questions, or as Adam said, we communicate with the customer. So you ask questions, let them talk, and try to navigate them to the correct answer and or a better space, just to make sure we're covering the business value that was initially defined. And if you find opportunities, you talk about it, right, along the way. So I think that's the gist of it.
Yeah, so there's that criticality of the objectives and the business value, and you know, everybody has their own experiences, and a lot of us in our teams across MicroStrategies have actually been led our own teams on the client side, and so a lot of these things we have either experienced or have made our own mistakes, which we've learned from. And when you combine a focus on what we're trying to accomplish, the technology expertise of our teams, and the scars that we bring ourselves to
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, I think that makes the interactions and the challenges that they're facing very real for us, but we're also able to say, hey, look, here's things we have experienced, or I have experienced. Maybe they haven't yet, but it's a good way to help them avoid some of those pitfalls. But you know, it's definitely not just hey, here's a technology thing, put this in place and everything is solved. It's a combination of experiences and that have to come up through the work.
You're muted.
This is like a normal everyday meeting.
I was about to say, this is.
I'm trying to avoid the feedback that you guys were getting, so I thought if I put it on mute, it would help.
But this time we have to talk. We take her off mute. That's the thing now.
Normally, tell me to put it on mute. Sean talked about the role of automation. What do you guys think of the role of automation with respect to allowing organizations to achieve some of this nimbleness?
Well, you know, I almost want to pause and hand it over to Bob, because for me to get to where I knew, Bob's infrastructure is to be automated. I mean, if I look at if I look at delays, right, when it comes time to, okay, Adam, I got the business process, I got this, I'm usually standing there going, where am I putting this, guys? where is this going? You know what I'm saying? And I think the automation from an infrastructure side is huge, especially for guys like us deploying these apps. You know, and I think that has definitely been a big deal. The evolution of that capability, it's huge, because that's always been the exciting thing for us. You know, you warn the client, tell them you're gonna do it, you get it all going, and then if they don't have a methodology to get that stuff ready to roll, oh my God, then you're all staring at each other like, I got this really cool solution. You sure you want it? I mean, you know, always an interesting topic.
I think what do I think of automation? Lee, you might want to mute again, because I think we're getting feedback. From an automation perspective, I believe it's still there. Not sure what's happening, but anyway, so I think we're moving beyond automation to orchestration, right? So what Adam's talking about is having a sandbox that he can operate within, that has enterprise capabilities and security around it, to where he doesn't have to worry about those things, right? So his infrastructure that's built out. The common term today is containers, right, or Kubernetes orchestration, or today we're going to talk about the cloud packs and OpenShift with Red Hat and things like that. So, but it's container orchestration, giving him an environment to operate in that, again, is boundless, right? So whether he's working on-prem technologies or he needs additional scale, he can scale out to public cloud from an on-prem with a single control plane, and his team can work within that. So to me, we've gone beyond automation. We've done automation for years, but now we're in orchestration and really setting rules for things to operate. And the simple example I use for people, just think about your inbox, right, on your mail, right? You have rules, you're filing things, you may forward things. There's all sorts of Boolean logic you can throw in there to manage your email box. We're doing the same thing with compute today. So we can orchestrate on-prem technologies across different hardware platforms, along right into the public cloud, or vice versa, back again. So I think that is defining those areas for people to work, whether that's a business team that has developers built or put within them or organized within them, they're doing regular stand-ups and they're iterating on a constant basis, or it's a development team building a solution. It's really defining those environments or sandboxes to allow people to thrive. And it's so much easier now, because with the utilization of the technology from an orchestration perspective, it scales up to what's needed. It doesn't have to sit there and be unused, right? So the utilizations we're seeing with on-prem technology and definitely the cloud technology is spinning things up and down. And we talk a lot about 24/7 needs or 24/7 compute requirements, right? If you don't have those, you're going to have a lot of public cloud utilization, you know. So it's interesting to find the world, and you know, we've talked a lot about data, and you know, Juan and Adam have both put plugs in for the analytics track later today. But the reality is, if you think about the data coming off of these processes and the scale that it takes to manage that data up and down to do anything with it, like the math he's doing, you start talking about going beyond ML to AI, the compute cycles on that are tremendous. So if you don't have orchestration in place or an orchestration platform to manage that, you're going to have challenges. It's going to be, you won't be able to iterate fast enough. And I'll let Juan take it from there. So, but that's
Can I
really
ask a quick question? I just want to ask one quick question because I know we're getting close on time. I know we talked a lot about both the technology and the business side. What about the automation as the business side tries to really become more nimble as they're trying to adapt? Where do you see automation playing a role there?
I mean, like I said earlier,
Juan, you want to take that, or?
I was just going to throw, I mentioned IoT earlier. RPA is obviously very popular and becoming more and more popular as we speak, but I think the new endpoints that are going to be coming online are going to further touch process automation. If you talk about it at the business level and things, you know, from chat bots to everything that's out there, you start connecting those dots and really bringing things together. And then with the elastic capabilities we have from a compute perspective, it's limitless. And that's in ultimately bringing AI into it. So with that, I'll set up my partner Juan there.
It's about I go back to the customer expectations, right? And we were talking about how important people are in this, in making all of this happen. And where do we want to deploy our talented resources? Where do we want to invest? Because we don't have unlimited resources. So there are activities that can absolutely be automated. We can leverage some of the advancements, and there's plenty of advancements around AI and machine learning that can be deployed not necessarily to replace a function, but actually to meet a function that has evolved before our ability to actually staff for it. You know, being able to interact with customers, things like chatbots, being able to respond to very quick needs and call outs from customers. These are not replacements of people's jobs. These are demands that have been introduced because the expectations of us as consumers are advancing and changing.
Can you guys just leave everyone with one thought, one takeaway with respect to cloud, if you could, just very quickly?
From my perspective, I said it, it's orchestration, the technology's there. How are you incorporating it into your business processes today? From an iterative perspective, bringing data in as well.
Yeah, and I would reinforce the orchestration pieces, looking at applications, analytics pipelines with business objectives and the platform that supports it, right? And that flexibility that cloud technologies can bring, and is not a disconnected world.
And the bottom line is, no matter what kind of strategy you think you have, you need to revisit it. No matter what you think that strategy is, continue to revisit it, because things change that fast.
Perfect. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a great conversation. Kelly, thank you so much.